new Galaxy Note 20 Ultra has a camera that's ready to take your extreme close-up, and a lot of your money. Samsung's business-class phone has certainly become an investment, to the point where you may ask yourself, do I really need an everything phone? It's the best camera phone on the Android platform thanks to its 5x optical zoom, 50x digital zoom, fun portrait filters, and easy-to-use camera app interface. Samsung's S Pen stylus once again enables you to remotely snap photos, and the 960fps super slow-mo videos we took amaze friends, even if it's a Galaxy S9 Plus era feature. This fun factor helps compensate for the fact that this camera isn't always pixel-perfect in stringent side-by-side comparisons with the iPhone 11 Pro Max and Google Pixel 4 XL. Samsung's photo processing still aggressively smooths textures in low-light conditions if you look closely enough, although its night mode has gotten better. Our core issues with the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra have been addressed with the Note 20 Ultra. The camera adds a laser autofocus. Without it on the S20 Ultra, out-of-focus photos became so much of an issue, we began recommending to people the S20 Plus, due to its lower resolution camera but more stable dual-pixel autofocus. The new Note design also looks and feels more premium than the S20 Ultra. The Note 20 Ultra is the complete package from Samsung. It has a 6.9-inch 120Hz display that moves fluidly under the finger, a fast new chipset, 12GB of RAM, 5G speeds, and all-day battery life. The S Pen also comes with brilliant new features, like syncing voice recordings with your scribbled down notes. Power users will have no complaints. There are things the Note 20 Ultra can't do, but most of them don't matter. Although the phone supports a Quad HD resolution, Samsung defaults it to 1080p, it still can't do the 120Hz refresh rate and Quad HD at the same time, while the OnePlus 8 Pro can. Because 60Hz is harder to live with when we're getting used to higher refresh rates, we kept the resolution at 1080p. It looked perfectly fine. We didn't miss the extra pixels, and we don't think most people will notice the difference on a screen of this size. We also didn't miss the space zoom gimmick from the S20 Ultra, which Samsung has dropped here. It was a neat party trick, but anything beyond a 50x zoom was often unusable depending on the lighting conditions. The same goes for the marginally better S20 Ultra 40-megapixel selfies, offering finer detail when cropping in on photos. They're 10-megapixel on the Note 20 Ultra, but the file sizes and the front camera punch hole are both smaller. Samsung wants you to think that the Note 20 Ultra has it all, and it kind of does, if you're okay with its lack of truly fast 45 watts charging, and the lack of a standard 3.5mm headphone jack. Going back to the question we posed at the start of this review, do you really need Samsung's everything phone? If you don't need it all, then the more conservatively priced Galaxy S20 Plus does 3x zoom sans a stylus. But if you do need it all, and money is no object, then do buy the Note 20 Ultra. Design. The Galaxy Notes have their own distinct design language to set them apart from the more mainstream S-series phones. The Note 20 Ultra respects that principle and adopts the striking sharper corners we've come to expect from the lineup, in contrast to the easier on the eyes, more rounded look of a Galaxy S20 Ultra. The evolutionary refinement can be seen when looking at the two Notes side by side. The bottom bezel is a hair thinner, the selfie camera cutout is smaller, and that's about it. There wasn't much to shave off the older model to begin with. The display remains slightly curved, enough to annoy flat-screen diehards, and to make glass protectors a pain to install. The Note 20 Ultra is where Gorilla Glass Victus debuts, so hopefully, screen protectors shouldn't be needed. Having said that, the phone does ship with a sheet of plastic foil for some extra peace of mind, though in the past we've been unable to get official replacements for those. The Note 20 Ultra is not just a Note, but also an Ultra, and there's no chance you'll miss that, even at a passing glance at its back. A camera assembly so big and prominent we haven't seen before. With the Note 20 Ultra now thinner than the S20 Ultra, the bump is raised higher. The usual practical consequences of that involve wobbling on flat surfaces, and the phone does suffer from that, not ideal if you want to be drawing on it. A case is the only obvious solution. Having said that, the design of the Note 20 Ultra's camera cluster is a lot more sophisticated and classier than on the S20 Ultra. For starters, there's no sign of the space zoom branding. We still can't fathom how that made it to a flagship Galaxy in the first place. The otherwise rectangular opening for the periscope's prism has gotten a circular outline to match the other two, and the three cams have the same brushed metal-looking rings around them, in a matching color to the phone's paint job. The two sheets of glass that cover the internals are held together by a metal midframe, which has historically been made of aluminum. Samsung reps shared with us that the frame on the Note 20 Ultra is made out of stainless steel. The frame is nearly flat on the top and the bottom, making you think the phone could stand upright on its own. On the sides, there's not even 2 mm of the frame exposed, except on the right where the power button and volume rocker are, and the frame is widened to accommodate them. Indeed, the power button has returned to the right side of the phone where it should be. The S Pen has the exact same physical dimensions and weight as the one on the previous generation, and it looks identically. Samsung quotes 24 hours of standby battery life out of the stylus lithium titanate battery, up from the 10 hours of the Note 10 specs. Judging by the lack of physical changes, that's likely due to optimization rather than a new battery. The Galaxy Note 20 Ultra is 0.7 mm thinner than the S20 Ultra, as well as 14 grams lighter. At 77.2 mm wide though, it's not a phone for single-handed operation, that much is clear. But with the S Pen around, two-handed use is sort of assumed, right? Display. The Galaxy Note 20 Ultra features what could possibly be the pinnacle of display technology available to the public right now. It has the resolution, the refresh rate, the brightness, the color reproduction, and, being a Note, the nuanced pressure detection for the S Pen. Let's unpack a bit. At 6.9 inches in diagonal, the 20 Ultra is the biggest Note to date, a mere 0.1 inches difference giving it the edge ahead of last year's Note 10 Plus. Resolution is 1440 by 3088 pixel, which comes in an odd 19.3 to 9 aspect ratio. The pixel density works out to 496 pixel per inch. It also comes with a 120 Hz refresh rate and a 240 Hz touch sampling for speedier detection of touch input. What hasn't changed since the S20 family, where Samsung introduced its 120 Hz panels, is the limitation that going for the 1440p resolution locks the refresh rate at 60 Hz. To have the high refresh rate, you need to run the Note 20 Ultra in 1080p resolution. What's different this time around is that the 120 Hz setting isn't dead set. Instead, if you opt for the adaptive mode, the one where the Note will up to 120 Hz, it will dynamically adjust it depending on what you're doing on the device. We've seen such behavior from other high refresh rate phone displays, and it should help with endurance. After all, you don't need your phone to refresh 120 times a second when watching a 30 fps video, but you'd be paying a battery life toll if it is. Feel free to use the Ultra in direct sunlight, as we recorded its average brightness at 663 nits. It's not nearly as luminous as the iPhone 11 Pro, but is among the top contenders nonetheless. Overall, I can't say enough positive things about the Ultra's display. It will draw the best out of whatever content is on screen, and holds up well in almost any viewing environment. Camera. Distance used to be a problem for smartphone cameras, which were incapable of making distant subjects look anything other than distant. The Note 20 Ultra addresses this problem with a camera that zooms into scenes with a 5x optical zoom and a 50x digital zoom, and this is where Samsung's new camera stands out. It makes the iPhone's 2x optical zoom feel like meaningless image cropping. We found Samsung's photos to be clear up to 10x zoom, depending on the lighting conditions. No, this telephoto lens doesn't have the S20 space zoom feature, but that quality loss between 50x and 100x made it largely unusable. It was a party trick we didn't need. The 50x zoom reach is more than enough, and the biggest deal is the souped-up 5x optical zoom, not digital, not hybrid optical, but optical. At night, Samsung's phones tend to compensate for noise with aggressive texture smoothing, and the Note 20 Ultra is no different. We still found that some iPhone 11 Pro Max and Google Pixel 4 photos retained more detail in low-light situations, although Samsung seems to have improved its night mode over the last year, and side by side, no one is doing telephoto better than Samsung, unless you count Huawei's non-Android phones. But where Samsung really wins, even if images from its phones aren't the best when it comes to pixel peeping, it has the easiest to use and most fun smartphone camera. That still counts for something. Video on the Note 20 Ultra cranks things up to 8K, in either a 16:9 aspect ratio or the new 21:9 cinema format. But that sounds better than what you actually get. This isn't the crisp 8K you'll get from something like the Canon EOS R5, and the storage-hungry resolution, along with 4K, lacks Samsung's super steady stabilization, which is still limited to 1080p. Most people should opt for 4K with steady hands, or when things get shaky, 1080p, as boring as that sounds. We found single-take mode useful for snapping multiple photos and videos at the same time using the phone's various cameras and modes, while super slow-mo video at 960 fps artfully captured some water rushing out of a fire hydrant on a hot day. Samsung hasn't upgraded this since the S9 and S9 Plus. It's still 720p and looks ghastly in low light, but on a clear summer day, and played back a 6.9-inch display, it still amazes. Software. Love it or hate it, using a Samsung phone means using and interacting with its One UI user interface. The Note 20 Ultra ships with the latest One UI 2.5 update, which is based on Android 10. It's made up of minor improvements that work together to feel like a significant upgrade to the user experience. If you're not a fan of Samsung's software, this isn't likely to change your mind, but at least it feels like the company is listening to feedback. Samsung has created and stuck with a very cohesive design language for the core user interface and all of its first-party apps. This makes the Note 20 Ultra feel super polished, along with giving it a distinct look that started to catch the attention of competing companies. It's bold, instantly recognizable, and feels faster than ever thanks to the 120Hz display. There are far too many extra features here and there to talk about everything that you get with One UI, but there are a few things that are especially noteworthy, one of which being Samsung's continued partnership with Microsoft for the Link to Windows feature. Samsung Notes can now auto-sync with your Microsoft OneNote account, and later this year, you'll be able to run multiple apps from your Note 20 side by side on your Windows computer. Samsung DeX also gets a marked improvement this year, with the Note 20 adding the ability to use the DeX interface on your smart TV wirelessly. As long as you have a TV or streaming device that supports Miracast, you can send the DeX desktop UI to your television, and use your Note 20 as a trackpad for navigation. It's another one of those features that you can very easily ignore, but it further adds value to the already massive list of things you can do with a Samsung phone. There are still a few duplicate apps, which feels wasted on a $1,300 smartphone, but the overall software package is pretty damn great. There's also the fact that Samsung is now promising the same 3 years of software updates that you get on a Pixel, which means you get the best of both worlds, endless features and guaranteed updates. S Pen. Year after year, the distinction between the Galaxy S and Note series becomes increasingly difficult to identify. The Note used to stand out as Samsung's power user smartphone, but we now live in a world where the Galaxy S handset that comes out before the Note is every bit as fast and capable. As such, the biggest differentiator between these two devices comes down to a small piece of plastic, the S Pen. The S Pen has been one of the Note's greatest strengths since the very beginning, and with the Note 20 Ultra, it picks up a few key features and improvements in an attempt to make it stand out as a legitimate benefit over the already great S20 lineup. Perhaps the most notable upgrade the S Pen sees this year is its reduced latency. The Note 20 Ultra boasts an impressive latency response of just 9 milliseconds, which is considerably less than the 42 millisecond latency previously offered on the Note 10. That's a flashy number to tout on paper, but the real-world benefits are more difficult to discern. The other big upgrade for the S Pen this year is a new batch of Air Actions. Air Actions were introduced on the Note 9 as a way to remotely interact with the camera app, and with the Note 20, they're expanded as a new way to navigate the phone and quickly open apps. There are 5 actions you can perform with the S Pen, and each one can be customized as a navigation button, S Pen feature, or app shortcut. One of the Flasher's additions is Audio Bookmark, which works when you're jotting down notes while recording audio from a business call, lecture, etc. Once the recording is complete, you can tap on any notes you took during it and jump to that section of the recording. It's a very specific feature that a lot of folks may completely ignore, but it's honestly quite handy, and could prove to be a lifesaver during especially long Zoom calls. Here's the thing. Even though the reduced latency isn't super noticeable, and the new Air Actions are disappointing, the S Pen was already the best stylus available for a smartphone. Even if Samsung only made it marginally better, it already had an incredible foundation to begin with. There's nothing here that'll completely change your mind about the S Pen if you already weren't a fan of it, but if it's a tool you've relied on for years, the Note 20 Ultra offers the best experience you can get for it. And the good news is that the improvements to Samsung Notes will likely come to older versions of the Galaxy Note in an upcoming software update. Performance. In typical fashion for Samsung top-tier smartphones, the Note 20 Ultra is made in two main versions when it comes to the chipset inside. North America, South Korea, Japan and China now get the Snapdragon 865 Plus, the souped-up fall version of Qualcomm's high-end chipset for 2020. Other places like Europe, India, Brazil or Australia receive the Exynos 990, the same Exynos that spring models had. A lot has been said of this regional divide, with customers in Exynos territories complaining they're getting an inferior product at the same or even higher price. There's a further split from there. 5G enabled and LTE only versions exist too. The processor is paired with 12 GB of RAM and either 128 or 512 GB of internal storage. For $1,300, I wish the Ultra started with 256 GB of storage, but at least you can expand it via microSD card slot by up to 1 TB. On Geekbench, which measures overall performance, the Note 20 Ultra hit a multi-core score of 3,294, which is ahead of most Android phones, but behind the Asus ROG Phone 3 with the same Snapdragon 865 Plus chip, which notched 3,393. The iPhone 11 Pro scored an even higher 3,500. The Note 20 Ultra also trailed the iPhone on our video editing test, taking 1 minute and 16 seconds to the iPhone's 45 seconds. On the GFX Bench graphics test, the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra scored 1,455 frames on the Aztec Ruins, compared to 1,657 frames for the iPhone 11 Pro. Some reviewers have complained that the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra can run a little hot. A Note 20 Ultra teardown has revealed that the phone uses a multi-layered graphite thermal pad to aid with heat dissipation, instead of the copper pipe and vapor chamber system used in the Galaxy S20 Ultra. However, we have not experienced any heat issues. Battery life. The Note 20 Ultra consistently lasted us a full day on a single charge with normal use. It's not Samsung's longest lasting phone, and that comes down to the curbed battery capacity compared to the S20 Ultra. 4,500 mAh for the Note 20 Ultra versus 5,000 mAh for the S20 Ultra. That said, we found it to have enough juice for most power users who gravitate to a Note. In addition to solid all-day battery life, Samsung has packed in fast 25 watts charging, fast 15 watts wireless charging, and wireless power share, so that you can top off someone else's Qi chargeable device, or perhaps your own earbuds. It's also equipped with a comprehensive range of power-saving options when you're the one in a pinch for power. Oddly, what's not on offer here is 45 watts wired charging, which is supported by last year's Note 10 Plus, and this year's S20, S20 Plus and S20 Ultra, via an adapter that Samsung sells separately. A few companies are even toying with 100 watts charging, but Samsung seems to be taking its time in rolling out truly fast charging. The 25 watts charging in the box is appreciated. It took us just 1 hour and 9 minutes to fully charge the Note 20 Ultra from empty, but the tech is out there that would allow Samsung to make that even faster. Verdict. To say that the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra is one of the best smartphones of 2020 is no exaggeration, but as powerful and impressive as it may be, we've seen tons of other top-notch handsets that have come out before it, one of which being Samsung's own Galaxy S20. The Galaxy S20 offers a very similar user experience compared to what you get on the Note 20 Ultra, including a 120Hz AMOLED display, top-of-the-line Snapdragon processor, and an excellent camera system. The form factor is also a lot easier to manage and use with one hand, not to mention it has a retail price that's $300 cheaper. If you can live without the S Pen and are okay with a smaller phone, the Galaxy S20 is a phenomenal purchase.